Cultural controls methods, usually after we get some kind of control, we can plant it back either to native vegetation, or if we've got irrigated pasture, planting it to something like a grass crop that can compete with the weeds and keep it under control that way. Biological controls, there are root weevils and flower weevils that work on diffuse and spotted knapweed, but not on Russian knapweed. They're that specific that they won't cross the knapweeds. So there's no effective biological control. Sheep and goats are used like up in Colorado. Unfortunately, we just don't have a lot of sheep and goats in Arizona anymore. So, but this is a bunch of goats in a Russian knapweed infestation over in Greenlee County a couple of years ago. The yellow and Malta star thistles I'm going to treat together because they're similar in a lot of ways. They're both annuals. This is the, when I told you this problem in California is the yellow star thistle. So some of the key things about the yellow star thistle is this white stiff spine that's up to 3/4 of an inch long. And on Malta has smaller, about a 1/4 inch spine. They're not as stiff, and they're kind of purple tinged, not the white color. Yellow star thistle is a state-listed noxious weed. Malta star thistle is not, and I really couldn't tell you why not, because it's as problematic. Like I said, they're annuals. The one thing, when you look at these mounts, you'll notice on the Malta star thistle, which is this photo, it'll put up, I used to think, well, we could just get mowers and mow it before it goes to seed since it's an annual. But the Malta puts on one flower at the very base of the plant, at the rosette stage, before it bolts. And so even if you mow it, it's always going to produce some seed for the next year. So I've not seen yellow star thistle do it. We have people in the county that have been hand pulling in their yards and finally gotten rid of it after about 5 years. There are also chemicals that work well on it. African rue, this is Interstate 10 in New Mexico. And several years ago, when they were putting the new fiber optic line in along I-10, they had an environmental consultant who told me that this was only about a mile from the state line in Cochise, entering Cochise County. Since then, we found it in Bowie and San Simon. Not sure how it got there, but it's obviously had been there for a while. We just didn't know what it was. It is toxic to livestock. It has kind of a fleshy leaf to it, and it smells really bad. It's got a 5-petal white flower, and it's got this kind of growth form. It's very roundish growth form. And then as it grows throughout the year, it starts weighing itself down and kind of falling in. And then in the fall, when it goes dormant, it turns this orangish color, and so you can really pick it up easily too by that color. It also has an extensive root system like the Russian knapweed. When I didn't know what it looked like, but I knew it was close. One of the professors at New Mexico State sent me a mount, and it was 3 plants all hooked together in about that much space. So it does the same thing, just starts up new plants. New Mexico Department of Transportation has had success with herbicides with it along their roadways. They've got some really big plants over there. It was actually brought in in Deming. This is the fairgrounds at Deming, and that's all that green is African rue. It was brought in as a dye, natural dye, to be used in dyeing wool, and then nobody ever did anything with it, and it just took off. And that was about 1935 or so that it was brought in for that. They've got, it's a real problem around Deming. It's all through town. All right. This one, onion weed, is actually a federally listed noxious weed. And that is one that we've got pretty bad in this area. Cochise County has more onion weed than any of the other sites in the state. We've got it in all different places. And so I'm going to pause here and put on a little video about onion weed. Did you see my cursor?
Yeah.
There it is. Okay. I don't know where it went there.
Onion weed is a federally listed invasive and noxious weed. It grows in most of southeastern Arizona. Its origin is Eurasia and the Mediterranean region. Arizona populations are known to occur in Sedona, Tombstone, Bisbee, Sierra Vista, and also Portal. It is a herbaceous perennial. It has leaves like onions, however, it does not produce bulbs or have an onion odor. The root system is fibrous and dense. Flowers usually have 6 white or pink petals with a red or brown midvein. The petals are about 1/2 inch long.
A native plant.
What else?
The people took here because it looked pretty.
It will dry all the land. It will kill our plants, our native plants. This is not native. Bad.
The first and most important step in controlling onion weed is prevention. If you see one plant, pull it right away to avoid a large infestation in the future. Seeds can stay in the ground for long periods of time. To eradicate it completely, you must continue to monitor and treat any new seedlings you see. There are 2 treatments for onion weed. The first is hand pulling. Make sure to get all the roots and the base of the plant. Then, double bag it using sturdy trash bags and take it to the local landfill. The second treatment option is to use certain over-the-counter herbicide. Contact your local USDA Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, or APHIS, agency for any further information. Here are some examples of how to properly remove onion weed.
That was one of our 4-H projects that the kids took on to this community service over in Portal, and pulled in 2010, yeah, they pulled 220 pounds from the post office and 2 residences. And then went back the next year, which was 2011, when we had that really hard February freeze. And we think that really hurt it a lot because we only pulled 1/2 pound at the same 3 places. And we've gone back every year. This year we pulled 4 pounds. So it's just getting, the seeds stays viable for 7 to 8 years. So we know we're going to have to keep going back every year for a while, but that's just part of it. So there are a lot of onion weed sites around here. Hereford Road is terrible with it. The county sprayed it 2 years ago, and it was looking pretty good last year, but we've got a 2-mile stretch where it came back up. But you can see it all over Sierra Vista, too. It's blooming right now. Linda and I were coming on Buffalo Soldier Trail this morning, and we're like, oh, there it is, there it is, there it is again. And she emailed me last week. She says, I'm in Sierra Vista, I see it here. We joke it's a curse, yeah. So, and then last week, or the week before, I can't remember now, we went to Tombstone, and the FFA students adopted the fire station at Tombstone, and they pulled 209 pounds. And that was just around the buildings themselves, and having to go back and spray in other out areas. So this plant, USDA researcher did a study at the Tombstone quarry, because it's kind of contained in the quarry area there. And for the growth period, which is 260 some days that it's actively growing, it can spread at a rate of better than 2 feet a day, which is pretty scary. Yes?
Kim, I'll just add that this has been a long time ago, in the late 1930s, that I was in Boy Scout camp in the Chericaps, Rustler Park, in that area. And there was a lot of it up there, and they just called it wild onion. And we didn't know it was a noxious plant in those days.
Well, and there are wild onions too, and that's kind of...
That's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. And if you went back to that fibrous root, this plant has a fibrous root like a grass plant, where our wild onions have a bulb. And this doesn't smell at all like onion. It just looks like, the leaf looks like onion. I've got a plant here too that you can look at. But it's basically that smell and the root that differentiate it.
That's good to know.
Because it was brought as an ornamental. It's from India. It's got a beautiful flower on it.
Do they, I don't think that the wild onion get as big either, do they?
No, they tend not to.
They're usually not as many sprouts on them, because we have some wild onion in our orchard, and they never get, they're watered regularly. They don't get that big.
And there were some mammoth ones last
Yeah,
week.
they were as tall as these
Yeah.
tables along the fire station that the kids were pulling out. They were big.
So this one is a real concern in this area. Just have a lot of it.
They're pretty.
Yeah, they're pretty, and that's the problem. I had one lady tell me at the Master Gardener Conference a couple of years ago, I was speaking about this, and she said, yeah, I had one in my yard last year, and I thought it was so pretty I just left it. She says, my yard is completely covered this year. I can't keep up with pulling it in 1 year.